Okay, I think we're all ready. Leonard said thanks for everybody coming, considering that we're almost in Rochester over here in this part of the great conference center. It's my pleasure and honor to welcome you all to the annual Don Yoder Lecture. And this year our distinguished speaker is Michael Owen Jones. Michael Owen Jones earned his BA from the University of Kansas with a triple major in history, art, and international relations, his MA in folklore from Indiana University, and his PhD with a double major in folklore and American studies. In 2008, he retired from 40 years of teaching at UCLA, where he gave courses and published on such topics as folk medicine, folk art and aesthetics, foodways and methods in fieldwork and folklore studies. Among his dozen books are Why Faith Healing, People Studying People, The Human Element in Fieldwork with Robert A. Georges, Craftsmen of the Cumberlands, Putting Folklore to Use, Folkloristics and Introduction with Robert A. Georges, and Studying Organizational Symbolism. In 2017, he published a co-edited book with Lucy Long titled Comfort Food Meanings and Memories. Also appearing last year is his book titled Corn, A Global History. He's published more than 150 essays. The most recent include 3 articles that appeared in the Journal of American Folklore, namely Food Choice and Identity, Dining on Death Row, and Eating Behind Bars in 2017. In addition, an article on Percy Shelley, the first celebrity vegan, was published in the Journal of Folklore Research in 2016. And an essay on pork ban rumors and nationalism appeared in Western Folklore. Jones is an AFS Fellow, a past president of the American Folklore Society, and recipient of the AFS Lifetime Scholarly Achievement Award. He's received major grants from the National Endowment for the Humanities, the National Library of Medicine, and the National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine. The NCCAM grant was to document folk medicine among Latinx in Los Angeles, which he is reporting in his presentation for the Don Yoder Lecture on Religious Folk Life. Please, everyone, welcome Michael Owen Jones.
Thank you, and thanks to Maggie Cruzy and Leonard Premiano, who are the conveners of the Folk Belief and Religious Folk Life section of the AFS. Also, Holly Everett in the Folklore Department at Memorial University of Newfoundland, and 36 healers who consented to be interviewed on this project. The report this evening is really highlights from a much longer essay that I am in the process of working on as an article. So, to begin, at age 26, Juan, that's a pseudonym, all names are pseudonyms in this report. At age 26, Juan from Mexico was the youngest healer and Botanica owner I met. In the first interview of 1 hour, he described 48 herbal treatments for 27 conditions, especially respiratory and gastrointestinal ailments. In a second interview, he characterized an additional 40 plants, 4 mineral substances, and 2 rituals to deal with 28 complaints. On a third occasion, he described 30 remedies for 19 problems, including plant and ritual therapies for alcoholism. In addition to being knowledgeable about herbs, Juan is conversant with multiple metaphysical systems. He is Catholic. First, however, he said, I consider myself a spiritist. He was initiated as a Santero in Santeria too, which he said, I see as being part of my spirituality. I have various beliefs that belong to a religion that is part of another Afro-Caribbean sect known as Palo Mayombe. I also practice and use this. I also use Haitian Vodun. I also have certain beliefs having to do with the Hindu lifestyle. I also have an inclination towards feng shui, which is an Asian or Oriental tradition. There are things that are considered part of Satanism, which I also use and implement, not to a fanatical degree or in a very violent or aggressive manner, but I have practiced these and used these things that are satanic. I do not discard this, and I try to use all these things in conjunction. Juan's integration of multiple traditions epitomizes the contention of Robert Orsi in his book, Gods in the City, that often immigrants' religious traditions, quote, are not syncretic forms, but creative recombinations of inherited, found, and improvised idioms. What follows first provides background to the research on which this paper and the longer article are based. Second, some of the people's ailments and nature's cures. Third, brief profiles of Juan and other healers, as well as the saints and spirits with whom they work. Fourth, sources of strength, power, and control for healers and clients. And finally, several conclusions from this paper and the study as a whole. For related analysis and superb visuals, which I'm not showing because they are lengthy video interviews, see Joseph Murphy's book, Botanicas, Sacred Spaces of Healing and Devotion in Urban America, and Patrick Polk edited Botanica, Los Angeles. Part 1, in the beginning. The project from 2000 to 2002 sought practitioners at Botanicas in Los Angeles to document the herbal remedies they employ. Canvassing neighborhoods and checking online directories resulted in compiling a census of 446 botanicas. 117 interviews were conducted with 39 individuals. Of the 36 who were healers, 11 men and 11 women, or 61%, owned botanicas. Oral accounts indicate that Benita Perez from Cuba established the first botanica in Los Angeles in 1962, which was called Niña Religión. Names of these centers usually contain the word botanica, along with reference to an Afro-Caribbean spiritual entity, such as Oshun or Obatala, a Catholic holy figure like Santa Teresa, or facets of spirituality, including faith, divine light, or miracle. Botanicas bearing the name San Simone number the most at 13. As one healer said, San Simone is among the saints who wear pants. That is, a folk saint not recognized by the Catholic Church. Inside the entrance to a botanica typically sits an altar or shrine to the Virgin of Guadalupe, Saint Lazarus, San Simone, or a Santa Rita Orisha, or saint. Lighted candles and offerings of food and drinks surround the figures. Glass cases contain dried herbs, teas, herbal lotions, and baths, as well as bead necklaces, booklets of remedies and spells, incense, prayer cards, crucifixes, rosaries, and amulets. Countertops display for sale statues of Catholic saints and African and Native American spirits. Shelves hold aerosol cans, along with household candles and glass ones called veladoras or velas. The cans and velas carry multicolored labels portraying holy figures or scenes and convey such messages as, "Come to me," "Fast money," and "Keep away enemies." And a spiritista said, what sells the most are candles. First, it's love-related stuff. Then it's the business of luck. And lastly, you have protection against enemies and things having to do with justice. In love-related issues, it's for attraction, for holding love, and in resolving some love complication. Usually a practitioner sets aside the back of the store or has a separate room for an office. Often adorning the walls are crucifixes, amulets, images of saints, or chromolithographs of Native Americans who are powerful allies in health because of their knowledge of herbs. Services include divination. As one interviewee explained, before treatment can be provided, one must understand the root of the client's problem, whether it is due to supernatural, to physical, or emotional reasons. A session may involve counseling, wellness recommendations, and Olympia, or spiritual cleansing, that consists of spewing Florida water on the client, sweeping a bundle of herbs over the individual's head and shoulders, or blowing cigar or incense smoke on the person. Of the 36 healers, Mexican and Mexican Americans dominate at 44%. Migrants from 3 Central American countries figure second at 28%, and those from the Caribbean and South America comprise the smallest number at 22%. With respect to age, slightly more than half were in their 40s and 50s when I began this research, and 1/4 were in their 20s and 30s. For 24 individuals about whom I have the information, 56%, more than half, attended a high school, college, or attained a high school, college, or graduate school education. 53% identified themselves as Catholic, and 36% were associated with Espiritismo, 19% with Santeria, and 8% with Palo Mayombe. One person each claimed Dianetics, Kuan Yin, New Age, and Reiki. Several of these individuals identified with multiple traditions, like Juan. As an Espiritista said, "My thing is more spiritual, but I do sometimes blend in other beliefs. In this country, the US, nobody follows a specific pattern. I think everything is allowed." Part 2, People's Ills, Nature's Cures. The 36 healers described nearly 100 physical conditions, along with emotional and other problems that they treated, and about 300 remedies involving plant, non-plant materials, rituals, or a combination. Among the plants are garlic to treat infections, aloe vera for burns and gastritis, pennyroyal leaf to relieve an earache or as a tea to alleviate indigestion and anxiety, epizota, wormwood, worm seed, for gastrointestinal ailments, mint and sweet basil to attend to insomnia and feelings of stress or anxiety, macerated leaves of plantain applied to wounds to reduce inflammation, and a tea from the seeds to ease nausea, horsetail tea and a smoothie of nopal cactus fruit as treatment for diabetes, ruda or rue to treat gastritis as well as regulate menstruation and to induce labor, papaya as an aid to digestion, bellflower or angel's trumpet to treat arthritis and also to promote sleep by placing a blossom under one's pillow, sage for bronchial ailments, arnica to reduce bruising, and teas of rosemary, native sage, ginger, or oregano for colds, fevers, and bronchitis. There's a core of about 30 herbs that nearly all practitioners are familiar with, and many of which several healers grow in their yards. Healers learn about the plant therapies from family, other practitioners, booklets they sell in their botanicas, Spanish-speaking television shows, and their clients. One healer explained, they would come and ask if I have passion flower for sale. I would say to the client, "So you take passion flower? What do you take it for?" They would say, "Well, in my country, Passion flower is good for the nerves, good for this, good for that. So then when I would get maybe 3 or 4 clients telling me the same thing about passion flower, well, then I would start recommending that. To my knowledge, only one work on botanicas and Latinx herbal remedies concerns treatments for alcohol abuse, namely an article in 1979 by Robert Trotter II, which reports that among Mexican Americans in Texas, the consumption of the seed of a tree, San Ignacio, is used as aversion therapy. 5 of the interviewees in my study discussed this addiction. Said a Santero, alcoholism is not a condition per se, it is a result of something. It is a supernatural cause. Is it a supernatural cause or other causes? Is it caused by the influence of others? Or are you being social? In the Caribbean especially, we have the day that we call Viernes Social, Social Friday, which means work is over. There's a party. That means if you go to the party, you have to drink. Remarked the curandero, if something bad happens, they go drink. And if a great thing happens, they go celebrate and drink. One Santero noted, many people believe that because their dad drank, that is why they drink. All healers voice variations of one person's observation that when you don't have a job and you feel like things are not working and you can't provide for your family or you're just not making it, it's just another stress that you can drink more because that makes you feel better. And a spiritista explained about the tree seed. They're like little discs, dark brown in color. They're toasted so that an almond-like substance can be taken out. Then they're crushed and surreptitiously put into a drinker's food because few people are willing to self-administer the treatment. The seed, he said, causes people to have nausea and gastric internal problems, diarrhea, when they ingest alcohol. And usually this is what makes them stop. He also recommended herbal teas as sedatives, which include, he explained, valerian root, chamomile, and linden tea. They create the same effect as alcohol. It puts you down, brings you down, sedates you just like alcohol would. So they pretty much get the same feeling in their body as being sedated with alcohol, but without the alcohol, rather with plants. Exorcism and magical transference also might be used for alcoholism, especially when someone insists he or she is victim of witchcraft or possession by an evil spirit. Some clients and healers will petition San Simone, who, and a spiritista said, is the most common and popular for spiritual work with alcoholism. He was a drinker himself, and that is one of his main offerings, liquor. The healer continued, a person might also walk through the streets where they know that people drink on the street, and they pick up, if it's a beer drinker, they'll pick up an empty beer can found on the street. And they'll put the person's photograph inside the beer can, and then they'll add other ingredients like holy water, different types of oils, powders, organic ingredients, and then they'll put it in front of the statue of San Simone. And alongside, they will light a purple candle for domination so that the person will have the ability to dominate and overcome this problem of alcoholism. The belief is that the object has a certain energy that you can, the idea is for you to transfer that alcoholism to the other person that threw that bottle or can on the street and get rid of it. In addition to aversion therapy, plant-based sedatives and rituals, and a spiritista noted, You always try to refer them to conventional methods, AA meetings, meetings that we know are around here that are close by, and we'll try to give them hotline numbers and try to give them help. Santero remarked, what you do is give consultations. Sometimes you become a shoulder that people come to cry on because you're the only person they can talk to. And then you have to start providing alternatives. Usually it can take some involvement and some kind of religious background that they may or may not have. Part 3, profiles of healers, saints, and spirits. The literature on healers at Botanicas usually focuses on those affiliated with a single religion. In what follows, however, I provide profiles of 3 individuals who utilize elements of several systems. Before being a Santero, I am a spiritist, said Juan. A spiritist is born a spiritist. From childhood, you see certain things that other people aren't able to. And when you tell the adults what you're seeing and what you're hearing and what you're feeling, they don't feel the same thing. Another clue is that when you start, for some odd reason, you start seeing things that are going to happen, but without anyone telling you beforehand who's visiting, who's dying, who's sick, things that you have no way of knowing. One works with multiple spirit guides. In my case, there are entities that come from Palo, from Santeria, some only from Spiritism. Although more than 20 spirits have descended over the years, one usually is possessed by red-skin Indian, an American Indian spirit, and an Aztec spirit, Indio Siete Plumas, Indian 7 feathers. Like other espiritistas, he has occasionally called upon famous Native Americans, such as Geronimo, but more often he chooses those particular to him. Juan sometimes also calls on Santeria spirits, but, quote, the African guide usually that I invoke is Francisco Siete Rayos, Francisco of the 7 Rays, an ancient spirit of the Caribbean Palo Mayombe, and Mama Francisca, who was once herself a living person that was a Santera and a Palera. Juan noted that the African spirits are more terrestrial, more materialistic, and are spirits that actually dwell on the earth, not spirits that have descended like Indian spirits that were always aspiring to a higher level of spirituality. The African spirits are used for aggressive work, he said, usually to help people rid themselves of something very evil like a curse or with problems with other individuals, to have them leave you alone, to have them stop saying something against you, to have everything negative that they want to wish upon you happen to them. In contrast, the Aztec, Mayan, and American Indian spirits, quote, help people and heal them, give them tranquility and peace. Redskin Indian, he said, was a Cherokee Indian. He died in 1807. Many spirits will do that. They'll tell you when they were born and when they died. They'll tell you usually if they were married, single, if they had children, basically what their livelihood was. He had, I think, between 5 and 7 wives, and he was a warrior who died in battle against other Indians. Indian 7 feathers has never given me much information as to wives, children, date of birth, when he passed or anything. The only thing he would discuss as far as his trade is that he was a sorcerer, that he was a shaman or curandero. Juan utilizes him to protect people from harm and from evil, witchcraft, stuff like that, or just heal them from other ailments or spiritual problems. He'll give me information in dreams. It's been a wide span of matters. Juan added, there's this one female Indian, her name is I guess translated into English would be wildflower, India flor silvestre. She's very maternal and into issues that have to do with love, family unity, children's issues, and things that have to do with being a maternal person. Juan also works with San Simone a lot, but mainly, he said, mainly for my personal use here in the store. I ask him for better business and for customers' money to come in through the door. That's why he's placed at the front of the store, not the rear. According to Juan, this folk saint was a wealthy person, a drinker, a womanizer, and being himself a wealthy European and of Indian blood, he had this compassion for poor indigenous people, and he would always help them. When petitioning San Simone, individuals give him food, liquor, tobacco, and flowers. People appeal to him for issues involving employment, alcoholism, love, immigration, and legal problems. To call forth an Indian spirit, said Juan, usually what I do is pray 7 Our Fathers, I pray 7 Hail Marys, and close my eyes. I clean myself with Florida water or any other type of spiritual cologne on the back of my neck, my forehead, my arms, my chest, and just sit in front of my altar and glance at one particular glass of water and then call upon him. He'll manifest himself through the glass of water, and I'll get thoughts put into my head from him. One knows when the Spirit descends because you have a physical feeling of what's happening. You lose consciousness 90% of the time. You have a sensation of being like on a roller coaster, and the ride has just plunged you down so many feet, and you have that feeling of a tight chest and of uneasiness, and also the sensation of fainting, passing out. And you also lose any notion of time. In fact, in that 10% of the time where you don't lose consciousness, you can hear things, but you can't see anything. You can't speak. You can't physically do anything. All you can do is hear. An example of channeling a spirit involving red-skinned Indian whose cleansing an example is involved red-skinned Indian whose cleansing and energy helped a Latina win child support from her Anglo ex-husband. Everything was just against her totally, said Juan. Even attorneys that she was trying to hire didn't really help her any. When she went into these court buildings, they wouldn't pay her attention and help her. Red-skinned Indian, through Juan, cleansed her 3 consecutive days and then once a week for a month. He gave her his energy, said Juan, and then the spirit had to work against the delinquent parent, and at the end she was able to garnish his wages. Because of red-skinned Indian's intervention, she was able to collect back child support plus have her ex-husband pay monthly because he was hiding a business that he had. Second healer, Arturo, is an espiritista. Born in Mexico in 1957, he migrated to California in 1975. When I met him, he was in ill health, having been diagnosed 16 years previously with HIV. And over time, he suffered shingles, thrush, pneumonia, several bouts of bronchitis. He came from a Catholic home where, he said, it was forbidden to speak of spiritism and witchcraft. It's very difficult and embarrassing because they are telling you that you're crazy, that it does not exist, that it's bad, it's a sin. By age 8, he had experienced visions and foreknowledge of events. For years, quote, my family criticized me and called me a witch. Until the 1980s, Arturo mixed hoodoo and spiritualism, he said. An acquaintance told him, however, that I had to make up my mind if I was going to worship God or Satan. Arturo promised his principal spirit, La Gitana, the gypsy, a beautiful woman, very sexy and elegant with lots of money, never to curse anyone anymore. I have asked forgiveness many times for that, for all the times I cursed people, because many were towards my family, and so I had to ask forgiveness. I won't curse them again, he promised, but devote himself to healing. During a misa or mass, said Arturo, any spirit can possess any person. That's why we have to perform limpias, cleansings, to do away with all the negative energy that is trying to enter, because we are opening a door. We are inviting a spirit to enter. At an invocation, I saw a dozen people lining the periphery of Arturo's living room. One at a time, they sat in a chair at the end of the room. He cleansed each by sweeping the person with a bundle of twigs around the head, shoulders, and chest, and then swatting it forcefully on the floor 2 or 3 times to dislodge the negative energy it had absorbed. The person leaned his head or her head back, face upwards, eyelids fluttering, while Arturo, in a semi-trance, asked about problems, uttered a prayer, and solicited spiritual intervention. As he said to me on the front porch during a break, these people have heart trouble. They have heart trouble. That is, each has a problem with some emotionally disturbing matter. One woman wept throughout the treatment. Her husband had just abandoned her. In another instance, a man had recently begun drinking and womanizing, which was greatly out of character for him. The spirit of a dead friend, noted for his alcoholic binges, was inside him and controlling his behavior. This man had come to Arturo to exorcise the friend's spirit and to return his behavior to normal. A third healer, Fernando from Guatemala, a curandero, a Catholic and curandero, who acknowledges that some people consider him a brujo or witch, and who can in fact cast spells, is aided by the spirits of deceased family members, but works primarily with San Simone. What I believe is all about San Simone, he said. God first, then San Simone. What I can do is put faith in God and in San Simone and plants. Uncertainty surrounds the saint's origins in Los Angeles, where 13 botánicas bear his name. He is depicted as lightly complexioned, sporting a mustache. He is garbed in a black hat, suit and tie, a white shirt and boots. Usually he is smoking a cigarette or cigar. Most often he is shown holding a staff in his right hand to garner respect, like local politicians in Guatemala, contended Fernando. Said to be a heavy drinker and a womanizer, San Simone is petitioned for love and sexual success, relief from addiction, help with immigrant issues, employment, family conflicts, illness, reversal of ill fortune and witchcraft, and revenge on enemies. Supplicants put notes about others or a photo of someone who has mistreated them under the saint's left foot, which dominates, and whisper their desires in his right ear. Annually in late October, some Angelinos host parties and a procession to honor and celebrate the saint, which I'm missing because I'm here telling you about it. Fernando learned of San Simone as a child in Guatemala when he worked at a store selling food and liquor whose owner revered the saint. Fernando's father, an evangelical, beat his son, telling him he was crazy for his claims of spatial powers and his infatuation with the folk saint. After surviving a difficult life, working in the store as a child, later in a bar and a bordello, as well as tilling fields, losing his mother in childbirth when he was 5, marrying a girl of 13 when he was 22, who divorced him after bearing 3 children, and living in a shed made of tin sheets that blew away in a windstorm, Fernando headed for Los Angeles with the help of a smuggler and protection of San Simone at the age of 29. There he worked as a day laborer in construction and picking fruit and vegetables. He established a Botanica in 1994. Here he treats physical and emotional ailments and performs consultations, spiritual cleansings, and trabajos, or works, including the removal, reversal, or casting of spells. Fernando described dozens of herbal remedies for muscle aches, cuts, and bruises caused by manual labor, skin ailments from working in fields, and stress and depression associated with relocation problems. He said, "I cure with herbs, but also, above anything, I cure with faith. San Simone and myself, and people feel better." And I get a lot of cases having to do with people getting treated very badly by their bosses at work. Another thing, witchcraft gets done on them because people are really jealous. You get lots of envy. He detailed his recipes for such matters as to how to cause a fight, ward off enemies, end someone's gossiping and rumor mongering, subdue a violent person, and more. Getting rid of someone involves putting a wax figure in a bowl and inscribing the individual's name on its back, head, and chest. Fernando explained, and then you say, "You have to leave me. I no longer want to see you, and I want you to leave me in 2, 3, or 4 days. If you say 4 days, he'll leave in 4 days. If you say 7, then it's 7 days he'll leave. Then you say, leave me and don't complicate my life anymore because I want you to leave." Next, you insert 7 needles in the chest forcefully with tweezers, and you say, "Lift yourself from my side," and you cut or break the calves, and you add to the bowl some milk and dark vinegar, some salt, a pinch of black pepper, along with 3 pigeon feathers and small rocks found in the street. The doll is then thrown into the woods or an empty lot. Part 4, fear, suffering, and weakness versus strength, power, and control. Through their knowledge and use of herbs and rituals, as well as assistance from saints and spirits, traditional healers attempt to offer guidance, assurance, and a degree of control to the clients who confront vexing problems. Sometimes a person's issues are multiple, as in the case of Sherelle, an African-American migrant from New Orleans. Divorced and in her early 60s, she suffers from several chronic ailments, must supplement her small pension by working as a part-time nurse's assistant, but has felt ostracized by others, endures the gossip of older women in her apartment complex, envious of her ability to attract suitors, and has had to live in inhospitable areas where drug addicts and the homeless wander the streets. An acquaintance recommended seeing a curandero at a Botanica about all the problems I was having, and he told me somebody had buried a picture of me in the graveyard. After being given a ritual cleansing to break the spell, I started working more and doing better. But eventually her insecurities returned. To help her, Sherelle's 8-year-old grandson found information about San Simone on the internet. And she in turn discovered Fernando, who works with the saint. The curandero performed limpias for her and sold her candles with the saint's image, along with an amulet depicting San Simone, that she hangs on the front door near a likeness of King Tut. So nobody, she said, can break in and steal your possessions. A picture of Kuan Yin adorns a nearby wall, as does an image of Haile Selassie, the Ethiopian king, with all kinds of magical powers. She has affixed a picture of the Virgin of Guadalupe to a window and placed statues of a small elephant for good luck and money and protection, the infant Jesus of Atoche, and a legua at various locations in her home. She created an altar to San Simone. Each morning she gives him tortillas and a lighted candle. Fernando blessed a stick in the saint's name for Cherelle, resembling San Simone's staff. I hold it, she said, and sometimes I rub the stick on me. Whenever I have problems, I light his candle and I tell him my problems, and I take the stick in my hand, and usually he works them out for me. I believe he works them out anyway. We Latinos feel better after this, said a well-dressed Latina at the conclusion of Olympia. I witnessed the curandero perform spiritual cleansings at other times on a prosperous white woman, a well-educated white man, and an African-American woman. Like their clients, healers may feel weak, ill, or at the mercy of legal forces. The city cited Fernando for taping flyers on utility poles advertising his business. In addition, he has not been able to treat some ailments in the U.S. because, he said, I am afraid of the law. Diego, a santero and osanista, or herbalist, had been selling 80 fresh plants in his Botanica, but ceased because of the county's instituting a license requirement that also mandated frequent inspections, which would have disrupted consultations and ritual therapy. Other healers have endured serious illnesses, including susto, or fright. Arturo, the victim of parental abuse and frail from a history of debilitating physical conditions. Only God knows what I've had. They are trials. Voiced the opinion that, yes, a good medium, a good spiritist, you have to suffer. Herbs are a prominent source of both healing and power. Said Diego, a santero, our main elements are plants. Without them, we cannot do anything. Overlooked in the few works on the concept of power and Latinx healing, analysis must begin with the most crucial materials, herbs. They are extremely essential and important, continued Diego, so I learned from my elders. One of the most important things about taking care of plants is to talk to them and to be able to ask them for a specific purpose you want them to have. Several of the healers, regardless of religious affiliation, also deferred to the plants, whom they thanked and uttered a prayer to. Said Arturo, as spiritists, we love herbs. They're part of the earth. Said Santiago, a santero, an osanista, or healer, or herbalist, the rule is that strong plants dispel, sweet plants compel. Strong herbs taste bitter or smell pungent or harsh, such as rue, angel trumpet leaf, avocado, tree of life, and the leaves of most trees. Sage, for instance, Santiago noted, is used to purify places. It chases bad spirits away. which is why Arturo hangs it in the cab of his truck. Sweet herbs include spearmint, mint, chamomile, basil, lavender, and any other plant that is sweetly aromatic. According to spiritists and santeros, some of the herbs in combination are more potent and effective. In Santeria, said Santiago, a mixture called omiro has very powerful medicinal properties. You have to put in a number of plants, no less than 7, but often many more. Prepared in front of a sacred object that requires nearly 2 hours to create, owing to the prayers and incantations. He explained, everything goes by the likes and personality of the Orisha, because what you're doing is translating the energy of the Orisha into herbal terms. So when you ingest it, you're not just ingesting herbs, you're ingesting the spirit of the Orisha. Traditional practitioners claim their agency, mastery, and authority in ways other than utilizing plants. One is a contention to clients that they were born a healer, or it was their destiny, or in Arturo's words, it is God who gave us all a power, a gift. Another source is narrating about the people whom healers have successfully treated when biomedicine has failed. Said Arturo, they have seen many doctors and blame it on them because they have not been able to find what in the world is wrong with them. So simply by talking to people and by finding out supposedly where the evil came from, that helps the person. These people are sick in their soul. We cure the illnesses that doctors cannot cure. Further, healers gain credibility and authority by their stature in a religious system, such as Diego, who is not only a Santero and Osanista, itself an achievement, but also an Oriente, a master of ceremonies at initiations, an overseer in the preparation of omiros. In addition, the veladoras, oils and lotions, consultations, herbal treatments, and rituals alone or together can, for some individuals, in the most favorable case, provide a sense of assurance, healing, and empowerment when suffering a host of problems, but not necessarily for everyone in every instance. Part 5, conclusion, pros and cons of herbs and saints. A data-centric approach to discovery and analysis, which is a hallmark of folkloristics and the perspective employed here, can reveal some of the negative as well as positive aspects of a phenomenon, thus providing a degree of balance. For instance, 2 Mexican women I interviewed, both of whom are proponents of herbal therapies, were repulsed by botanicas and their associated practitioners. They cater to black magic, said one. My daughter just had to leave because they had a lot of different incense, candles, black candles, and there were a lot of different things like dried hummingbirds and books on black magic. Most studies ignore or even deny the involvement of healers at botanicas with witchcraft to reverse and cast spells. Yet several of the practitioners in the study acknowledged participation in witchcraft, including Juan, who said he melded Satanism with other practices, Arturo, who heaped curses on his family, who had condemned his beliefs, and Fernando, who admitted he was often called a witch and who warned, being a witch is not a toy. The day I die, I don't know what God will say, because I can do bad things and good things. Hazardous products such as snake skins harboring salmonella or remedies containing mercury have been for sale in botanicas. Some practitioners make exaggerated or false claims about their qualifications and capabilities, such as a Sobador, a masseur, whose card lists many ailments he can cure, including cancer, gonorrhea, and syphilis. Others have a poor understanding of the human body and the causes of disease, like the Mexican curandera who attributed leukemia to malnutrition, or the herbalist chiropractor who insisted that all illnesses begin in the bowels. Some concoctions are dubious. When describing a remedy for thinning hair or baldness, a curandero said, "I use bee honey, avocado, sesame seed oil, oso oil, purple onion, and mouse excrement. Then I massage it into the scalp." As one healer told me, some diviners are good, some diviners are not good. Some diviners are just rip-offs. But people ask. The word gets around. While some remedies seem aberrant, recommendations for plant therapies abound and to some extent are defensible. Folk medical knowledge has served as a mode of screening possibly useful plants. Herbs also pose threats, however. At least 1/5 of the plants in the American and Mexican West used in remedies have not been studied sufficiently to evaluate their safety, and another 1/5 may, many of them do, cause allergic reactions. Some are toxic if taken internally. As Arturo said, all plants have curative or fatal powers. Every plant has its function. Of course, it depends on how you use it. An insistent theme in the literature on botanicas is that these centers, and by implication the practitioners associated with them, are a culturally appropriate and effective community resource, providing alternative but legitimate health care services. Little, if any, effort is made to explain what the community is, however, other than being ascribed the general label of Hispanic or Latino. In Los Angeles, the healers are mixed ethnically, like the cultures they draw upon. Patrons of botanicas also vary in ethnicity and nationality, and they are of different levels of income and status. The present study adds to the growing body of knowledge and theorizing about botanicas and the healers at them in several ways. In addition to discovering considerable diversity in ethnicity and religious affiliation among practitioners, it documents the role of herbs in treating a wide variety of ailments. The research indicates the centrality of plants in empowering practitioners and their clients, which has been overlooked in some of the literature. The study considers the plant and ritual treatment of alcoholism, a topic not previously examined in research on botanicas and scarcely at all with respect to Latinx folk medicine. This report acknowledges rather than ignores or denies the presence of witchcraft in these spiritual centers in the City of Angels, as well as illuminates the important place of trabajos or works in healers' repertoires for love, money, and legal issues, as well as spells for revenge and retribution. Finally, the study reveals through profiles of practitioners, their saints and spirits, some of the ways that specialists at botanicas combine in their practice elements of different religious traditions they experience in Los Angeles. While not the case for all practitioners, several healers do appear to be knowledgeable, trustworthy, and helpful. In addition to benefiting from plant materials that are administered, for instance, some clients likely profit from lengthy consultations and elaborate limpias. One healer asked rhetorically, where else can you get $200 worth of time charged by psychiatrists for $25? In conclusion, the information and interpretations in this study taken together can help inform educational and medical programs regarding the faith-based and traditional therapies of those seeking, as well as those providing, complementary treatment for a wide variety of problems. Thank you.
Mike, thank you. Good evening, peace, everyone. Good evening, folklorists. It's my pleasure to introduce our respondent, Dr. Ali Everett, who is Associate Professor and Chair of the Department of Folklore and with a cross appointment in ethnomusicology at Memorial University of Newfoundland. And my students have read her book, Roadside Crosses in Contemporary Memorial Culture. Her work has appeared in Journal of American Folklore, Folklore Ethnologies, Folklore Historian, Music Cultures, I don't know that one, sounds fun. Popular Music and Society Cuisine, the Journal of Canadian Food Cultures, Contemporary Legend. Now, Ali is also the current president of the Folklore Studies Association of Canada. And earlier today, there was a summit in the atrium of the Hyatt between President Dory Noyes and President Everett. It was very exciting. And they were discussing Canadian-U.S. folklore relationships. Dory attempted during the summit to place a tax on Canadian folklore as it entered the United States. Let me tell you, it got ugly. I walked by and tried to, ask what was going on, and they said, "Orr's face, get out of here." All I want to say is Ali stood her ground. Please welcome our respondent, Dr. Ali Everett.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Thanks also to Maggie Cruci and Leonard Premiano for inviting me to respond this evening. It's been a real pleasure to consider Dr. Jones' extensive research in the area of folk medicine, as well as its connection to other areas of his expertise, namely organizational folklore and material culture. Dr. Jones' deep knowledge of the recombinations of inherited, found, and improvised healing idioms, in the words of Robert Orsi, among Latinx healers and clients in Los Angeles reminds us of the dynamic complexity of health belief systems. While we may seek labels in order to classify and compare syncretic or recombined structures, we may miss the nuances of elements that don't appear to fit any one scheme. As folklorists, we recognize that people draw on physical and metaphysical resources in patterned ways, and that these hierarchies of resort differ from person to person and issue to issue. Dr. Jones' research adds to our understanding of the interaction of these individual hierarchies from the perspective of practitioners. We might think in terms of the way we all organize our unique approaches to maintaining not only our bodies, but ourselves in every sense. This holistic approach to understanding requires attention to multiple genres of folklore that come together in the moments of interaction between practitioner and client: belief, narrative, material culture, ritual. My comments tonight are along two lines, work and community. As Dr. Jones notes, literature on healers at Botanicas usually focuses on those affiliated with a single religion. In Jones' study, the healers are transcosmological bricoleurs, cross-referencing vernacular traditions for appropriateness and ultimate efficacy. Treatment for alcoholism can include herbal teas, magical transference, appeals to saints, and referrals to AA meetings. And perhaps more immediately crucial, the healer may function as a counselor, perceived as the only person a client can really talk to. And they learn from their clients, incorporating treatments from their clients' own traditions. Covering the broad spectrum of life's challenges, from persistent coughs to custody battles, healers may also assist with legal matters, while at times feeling themselves to be at the mercy of legal forces. These practitioners must bear a certain burden of proof, both to various regulatory authorities and to their clients. Botanica practitioners' extensive knowledge of the therapeutic properties of plants forms the foundation of this occupational repertoire, encompassing both material, the herbs, and ritual. And I wonder if we can see these practices engaging practitioners' extensive esoteric knowledge and expertise as comprising a canon against which practitioners evaluate each other and clients navigate Botanica-based treatments. Or perhaps the preliminary sketches of what Santino has conceptualized as an occupational cosmology in analyzing the memorats and legends told among airline employees. As one healer told Dr. Jones, some diviners are good, some diviners are not good, some diviners are just rip-offs, but people ask, the word gets around, and people ask and ask and ask. Some practitioners have little Western biomedical knowledge of the body and disease etiology, although with recent discoveries about the human microbiome, and specifically gut microbiota, I can't entirely discount the herbalist chiropractor who insisted that all illness begins in the bowels. As advancements in our understanding of the human microbiome unfold, how might our research reflect this deeper understanding of the interaction of microbiota and treatments such as fecal matter transplants and their iterations or predecessors in traditional herbal treatments? Here I'm thinking of the massive implications for those who struggle to manage conditions such as inflammatory bowel disorders. How will these treatments be received by patients? Where will they fit into cultural assessments of contamination and disgust? Just as intriguing are the possible connections between gut microbiota and the brain, and thus psychiatric conditions, including depression and anxiety. Dr. Jones' research also challenges scholarly understandings of the agency of clients and practitioners, and thus notions of community. Healing power or competency is established through the acquisition of knowledge, the narration of life experience leading up to the acknowledgement and harnessing of one's power or the acceptance of one's fate, and narratives of successful treatment, either in conjunction with, or perhaps more importantly, despite the failure of Western biomedical treatment. Who comprises the audience for such demonstrations of agency and efficacy? Whereas previous work locates these exchanges as solely an aspect of Hispanic or Latinx communities, Dr. Jones found a mix of ethnic and national origin, formal educational level, and socioeconomic status among both practitioners and clients, from the wealthy white Canadian to the struggling migrant. Yet we are left with questions of structure and agency, power and precariousness within these dynamic systems. In thinking about the interface of traditional health systems in Western biomedicine, as well as the strictures of structure influencing access to each, I kept thinking about the tent city in the West Texas desert that holds 1,500 children between the ages of 15 to 17. The United States government says that these children are not part of the 2,600 children who were separated from their parents under the zero tolerance policy. So at a count of approximately 4,000, over 4,000, these children face complex emotional health and legal issues both in the immediate future and the long term. As this large-scale trauma is perpetrated by the government, our understanding of the place of botanicas and practitioners in Latinx healthcare and our advocacy for its recognition by and integration into institutional biomedical healthcare regimes is perhaps more crucial than ever before. Thank you, Dr. Jones.
Dr. Jones, would you like to take some questions, perhaps, from the audience?
Surely, I invite questions. Please. Yes. Angus.
Dr. Jones, a naive question, but I kept thinking about it throughout the presentation. Is there something about Los Angeles or something about Southern California that's supportive of botanicas? In a way, say, I don't know, like Chicago or Minneapolis or Atlanta are not.
Thank you for that question, everyone here. Something supportive in LA, perhaps, of botanicas not found elsewhere. I read all the works I could find on botanicas looking for numbers. And I didn't find researchers trying to identify numbers, but where they did happen to indicate the size of their sample, you know, it's 7, it's 8. Even in New York City, there was a broad guesstimate of, well, maybe there are 300 in New York City. We found 446 in LA, and that's not all that there were, I'm sure. One does wonder, doesn't one, what is it about Los Angeles that serves so well for the development of botanicas? But there does seem to be something, perhaps, for the proximity to so many countries south of Los Angeles, south of the U.S., that have contributed, especially Guatemala and Mexico. As I indicate, a large number of Botanica owners from those two countries particularly. Yeah, anything else? Other questions? Yes.
Michael, you do remember that little study that America did. I was just wondering if you recall the early study that American Paredes did of the what's his folk medicine along the Texas-Mexican and the let's see, folk medicine and the intercultural jest along the Texas-Mexican border.
If you had
You all remember that was a classic article, a long time ago, right?
If you had any idea the number of things I've forgotten.
Okay, well,
over the
these
years. That's
two,
one of them. I know the title, but I can't remember
these
the rest of
two
it.
Mexican peasants are seeking help. One is seeking help for his friend. They're very poor. They go to the American doctor first, and the first thing the doctor asks is, okay, well, how much money do you have? No money. Sends them away. Go on, get out of here. And so they go across the border to the curandero, and the curandero says, well, and they explain to the curandero, I said, well, we've been to the Anglo doctor, and he won't treat, he won't help us. And the curandero said, well, what did he say? He says, well, there's something wrong with this, there's something in his stomach. And he said, well, here, eat these goat turds. I said, what? They eat these goat turds. He said, since goats eat everything, and I'm not sure what you need, the cure's in the shit. Don't you all remember that article? Okay, well, it was obviously a lot of things going on in that in a joke,
Yeah.
racism, and of course you could take a Marxist analysis to it as well, but we won't go there. Anybody
Okay.
else? I wanted to throw that out. I was curious if you had. Okay, never mind. Anyone want to ask something more profound?
There's one back there, Elliot, also.
It's working? Great. Thank you very much for that. That was really, really interesting. I had kind of two questions, really. One was the San Simone figure. I was wondering if that was to be identified with any historical person, or because my mind immediately goes to Simon Magus. The other question was your first informant, Juan, mentioned among his long list of practices Satanism. And that kind of struck me, as I'm sure it struck a lot of people. I was wondering how common sort of explicit identification as a Satanist or with Satanism was in this community.
What was the first question? I didn't quite hear.
San Simone, whether he's to be identified with any sort of historical figure or any sort of biblical figure, because Simon Magus was what was going through my mind.
Well, Joseph Murphy has written about that in his book Botanicas, and so he can add. But there's tracing, and some scholars trace San Simone to Mashimon, Mayan deity. I don't know. There's also some association with Santadius. I don't know. Turn it over to Joseph. Background on San Simone. Okay, we'll pass on that one any further than what I said, Mashimon. But the Mashimon figures I've seen are dressed in peasant garb, and San Simone is very much European styled in dress and in complexion and in stories that are told about him. Your other question was about Satanism. Juan did not elaborate, as I recall, did not elaborate on what elements of Satanism, not to a fanatical extreme, he said, but I don't remember his elaborating on any specific elements.
Yes, I have
Elliot?
actually three questions. Do you
I
have,
can't deal with three.
any information on the average number of people that come into a Botanica on a weekly, for example, basis? The second question is, do you have any information on the hierarchy of help seeking that attendees at Botanicas? In other words, do they first go to Botanicas and only then go up to, let's say, Western scientific medicine? Do they first consult Western scientific medicine and are not satisfied and drop down into the folk level? And then my third question, which is the most important, are you any relationship to Dr. Indiana Jones?
In answer to the first question, I did not sit there and count patrons at any one Botanica, but every time I was in a Botanica, there were a few people present, several of them waiting for consultation with the healer. So that's all I can say about that. There are people waiting. And some are also buying candles and amulets, as well as, the candles, especially the veladoras with the images of saints and the messages on them about come to me and find a lover and so on. Your second question was concerning the patronage, whether clients seek the Western medical assistance first, then go to Botanicas, or vice versa, what it is. It's a mix. It's a mix. Many of the people in Botanicas already know herbal remedies. They know what they're going to buy if they're buying packages of herbs. They already know they're there more for consultations and for help through spiritual intervention with legal problems or love problems. There are a few, yes, I've encountered who have not been successfully treated for physical or emotional problem with Western practitioners that they've gone through first and then are at the Botanica for help. I'm sure it's the other way around as well, that they don't go to the Western. Some don't go to the Western. They seek the assistance of the healer for the emotional or legal problems because of the faith, the spiritual intervention that they can secure for themselves. And I really don't know whom I'm related to, but I am the last in my family aside from my own offspring. But thanks for asking. Other question? Yeah.
My Florida water, you brought that up several times.
Yeah, that's the most common. That's the most common cologne, perfumed liquid that they use to cleanse themselves or sell to other people to cleanse themselves. Called Florida water. It's actually the only one I ever saw in a Botanica, but I wasn't looking for other names, other kinds of spiritual cologne.
I have a question. Dr. Mike,
Thank you.
have you ever consulted a healer, a Botanica healer, for your own real health? And have you ever taken herbs? And if not, which alternative medical treatment is your favorite?
Hasn't everyone? Hasn't everyone? I've had a number of cleansings, limpias, performed, and I use arnica on bruises. Thin-skinned, I bruise a lot. Arnica is quite helpful. Beyond that, not much in the way of herbs, but a number of spiritual cleansings.
Were they effective?
Varying degrees of complexity. Some of them very simple, just blowing smoke, incense or cigar smoke around me, or brushing with a bundle of herbs, but more complex than that as well, involving ring of fire and crushing flowers and saying prayers and invoking various spirits. Was it effective, you ask? Well, you know, what did that woman say? We Latinos, or we people, benefit from these healings, these cleansings, make us feel better for a little while, which is important. Yeah. Anything else?
Well, we feel better.
Well, good. So do I.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.